don't mean to totally skip over that rather challenging host of readings today, Habakkuk's Watchtower, and beautiful Habakkuk, very significant prophet. Timothy, protege of Paul, Paul's writing to Timothy near the end of his life, encouraging him. And that completely challenging reading that you have to do some work on in the Gospel of Luke, where the disciples are walking with Jesus and they say, increase our faith. And Jesus says, if you read between the lines in the Greek, you don't have to go anywhere or do anything super special to have your faith grow. And have it the life that God has given you today. And there's plenty in the life to have your faith grow. So, but the worthless slave part's a bit tough to hear for Episcopalians. So let's leave that behind. I did promise a bit today to our pilgrims. I give you a report. No one ever goes on pilgrimage by yourself. It's not an individual thing. Nor is it disconnected from a church. Tourists can go tour, and you guys have toured all over the world. Adventure travelers can go do adventurous things, and you do that all over the world. It was amazing to me that out of the 47 pilgrims that went on this trip, almost none of them had ever been, with a few exceptions, to the Holy Land, to the Middle East. I mean, you've been to Bhutan, you've been to the South Pacific, you've been to the Arctic, you've touched the Arctic Circle, you've been to the moon, but you've never been to the Middle East. And so, churches send pilgrims. And so we went, and I want to make sure, very clear before I say anything else, there is something called kind of the pilgrim experience. I'm speaking to our pilgrims now. When we come back, this has already happened, I've already had conversations. So at least one person said to me, I wish I was as Christian as they were. To which I said, oh, no, let's not do that. We're not better than, our faith is not different than anybody else's because we had this experience or didn't. We're all connected together. The excitement that you hear in the voice of the pilgrims is the excitement of a student. It's Helen Keller learning water for the first time. It's a sense of expansion of what we already had been exposed to. You can take a pilgrimage. We take a pilgrimage every single Sunday in the readings. The Bible itself is the gateway to pilgrimage. Everything we did was in the Bible. Every site we visited, every story. So we're anchored. We're anchored in that fundamental experience of Scripture. So I just want to say, don't confuse excitement with saying, hey, look at us. Not at all. As a matter of fact, I was only stopped 4 times before Sandy Treat's memorial service. I had not yet even vested for people asking when we're going to go again. And I politely had to say, excuse me, pardon me, could I get vested and could we do the memorial service for Sandy and then maybe talk about this afterwards? And so the people pretty excited. So are we thinking about another? Yes, we are. The answer to that is yes. So pilgrims go to encounter their faith in a different way. It's almost like a master's degree course sped up. It's very intensive. 47 pilgrims. Our oldest was 86, our youngest was 41 years old, and she was very, very energetic. We had people that were married and happy about it. We had people that were married and wondering if they would survive 2 weeks with their spouse. We saw couples kind of fall back in love and travel together. That was super cool. We had divorced and widowed and people that had never been married that wouldn't mind being married at some point on the trip. It was great. We had all kinds of people on this trip. We walked between 68 and 70 miles in 12 days. Everybody did that. We had 2 people being treated for illnesses, and they did that too. Our top heat was 106 degrees in Galilee for 4 days straight. We baked in the Galilee. We did not anticipate the heat that we had there. It's okay at the Dead Sea, but at Galilee, around the Sea of Galilee, never seen that kind of heat. I had never seen the fleet of buses, tens of thousands of pilgrims in the old city of Jerusalem, not built for that many people. Those buses are large. I mean, it was unbelievable. So it was quite an energetic experience. Can I say that the title of our trip was the Fifth Gospel? Because the Holy Land itself is like reading a gospel. This is the place that God chose, we believe, to send Jesus into the world. This is the place that's the anchor in Jerusalem of 3 world religions that count for over half the world population of our species. This is the most significant sacred real estate outside of the hidden city. It's very incredibly profound. We arrived at Tel Aviv on the bank of the Eastern Mediterranean, and it was just about to be Shabbat was ending. So anyway, our group arrives, and we do what faithful Episcopalians on pilgrimage looking for Jesus generally would do. We go to the beachside bar on the beach, and we order a drink and have spiritual reflections together with our feet in the sand. It was so profound to start that way. And so we were going to bed. Everyone's super tired. They've flown around the world. And we hear music. And so off on the beach, there's music. So some of us went over to see what it was. And the Israelis dance publicly. They put up a music speaker. Someone plays folk music that they've grown up dancing from the time they were infants. And they do a circular dance. This is 4 generations of people, 80 to 100 to 120 people, all dancing rhythmically. All with the most beautiful, elegant motions of the whole body, expressing their thoughts about Shabbat. It was absolutely magnificent. And so Father Michael Richardson, a priest that was rooming with me and we were, I was taking him home from the bar, and that's on YouTube, Michael. And then all of a sudden, we looked over, and guess what some of the pilgrims had done? They stepped in and started dancing. So Father Michael looked at me, I looked at Father Michael, and we joined in the dance. And we started our pilgrimage dancing on the beach in Tel Aviv. It was really beautiful. They were so kind, and people were so patient as we mucked up the line, every single circle that we made. We went to Masada, the great identity, the Israeli Jewish identity, is founded on the mountaintop of Masada by the banks of the Dead Sea. This is where Jewish rebels held out against Roman soldiers for almost 3 years in the 1st century. They all died by their own hand, rather than be conquered by the Romans. The graduation of the special forces of the Israeli Defense Force is to run with 90-pound packs up the mountain. And they graduate on the summit. This is a very important site. We're touring Masada. It's oven-baked hot. And we go into a synagogue that they made in the 1st century. Before they died, in view of the ramp that the Romans were building using Jewish slaves, their own relatives from Jerusalem, they're praying in the synagogue by the wall. It's totally open, there's no ceiling view. And we're baking in the sun as the guide is telling us about synagogue. We started to leave, we're all turning around, the guide's already walking away. And I noticed this little door and this little closet-looking thing. And it was covered. So I peeked my head around the door, and here is a rabbi who is licensed as a scribe. A scribe is someone that is authorized and trained to produce scrolls for synagogues. He's writing in Hebrew a scroll. He has a study. He's got books and parchments. I wanted to end my trip right there and just stay with him. Bill and Mary Cotton were right there, and I motioned Bill and Mary over. And he asked who they were. They had a brief conversation. He wrote their names, right? He wrote their names down and gave them, in Hebrew, gave them a little blessing. So that when you least expect it, you have a rabbi show up in a synagogue in one of the most significant places in Judaism. Isn't that cool? That's just amazing. We went up to the top of Mount Tabor. Now we're more to the north of the country and towards the Jezreel Valley. Mount Tabor is a mountain that comes right up from the plains. And on top of Mount Tabor is a church called the Church of the Transfiguration. It's the place where the transfiguration of Jesus is remembered. It's a beautiful, scary ride up. Driving the way the clergy drive up, you get to the top, beautiful monastic grounds with trees and gardens and flowers, and you walk through this canopy of trees, and you see this beautiful church built by an amazing Italian architect. We walked inside the church, and there's the Transfiguration in a beautiful mosaic, and it's on the back of the wall. There's gold leaf all along the wall. And the architect designed the church so that on August the 6th, the feast day of the Transfiguration, the light from the little glass on the far side of the church illuminates the robe of Jesus. Do you see the robe is white? And so on the feast day of the Transfiguration, the light hits his robe. And it glows in the church. Isn't that cool? Never knew that. So we go into the church, we have a great time. We come out, and I want to do Eucharist. I want to do communion on the Mount of the Transfiguration. And so we found all these Catholic groups having Mass all around us. We found a stone courtyard just adjacent to the church. Olive trees and shade. We sat down. There's a stone, little altar table. Our guide, who's a Messianic Jew, took his prayer shawl out with Hebrew written in it, embroidered. He laid it on the table, and we used a chalice and a plate that we had bought in Jericho earlier that day. And we had one of the most moving communion services I've ever conducted in the courtyard of the Church of the Transfiguration. It was incredibly special. I realized, and I shared at that moment in the sermon, that there were more pilgrims present at that Eucharist than members of the church in 1995. What a gratitude. Amazing. And as we're ending, a priest, a Catholic priest with a group of people come marching up. And we're not quite done yet. I thought, oh dear. Oh no, we're in trouble. We didn't rent the spot. This is his spot, and this is how priests look. They're not always happy in the Holy Land. And he comes marching up, and I'm like, oh no, 3 more minutes. The guide is already stepping forward to kind of talk to him. He leaned over the wall. He said, excuse me, someone from your group left this backpack. And we wanted you to have it. He said, God bless you. Enjoy your communion. That's why you do it. It wasn't all that kind of impactful. I want to highlight Mary Cotton since she's not in the room. Mary brought Flat Jesus with us on the trip. Does anybody know Flat Stanley? Everybody know the Flat Stanley book? It's a book. It's a book about, it's a book that has a little boy that gets flat, so they roll him up and they take him places. So Flat Stanley, some families take pictures all over the world when they travel. Well, Mary made Flat Jesus. He's in a little white robe with big cartoon eyes, and it has the name of our church and the website printed. And so here's Flat Jesus. And so Mary was taking pictures of Flat Jesus, all in these incredible sights, and sending them back to our kids. And so here we are at Jericho, one of the oldest inhabited cities in the whole world. And here we are at Jericho, and there's an archaeological dig that goes back 12,000 years. And it's amazing archaeologists that did this dig to expose the walls that fell when Joshua blew his shofar horns around Jericho. You all know the story of Joshua and Jericho, the walls of Jericho. They came tumbling down. So here's this archaeological dig. It's incredibly significant archaeologically and religiously. And so Mary is trying to hold out flat Jesus to get a shot in this panoramic deep, it's very, very deep. You're digging way down. And so, being the helpful rector, I suggested that I could hold flat Jesus while Mary took his picture. And so Mary and I have been friends, we've worked together for years. We work very closely together. And so we're really good at communication. And so Mary holds out flat Jesus, and I reach out to take him and missed flat Jesus in the exchange over the archaeological dig in Jericho. And flat Jesus wafted down past the Byzantine lair, and the Roman lair, and the Greek lair, and the second temple lair, and he went all the way down to the Canaanite lair, which is at the bottom of the whole thing. 12,000 years flat Jesus passed. Mary and I are staring now, and so here are these incredibly significant walls that every group behind us are going to look at for weeks. And with our church name and web address is Jesus. You just can't make this stuff up. It's incredibly powerful pilgrimage. We have stories every night about funny stories as a group. Anything funny happened to us. A couple, Charlie and Carmen. Charlie's 8 years old. They've been married 57 years. They talked about calling the front desk in Galilee, which was not our favorite hotel, to get something. And they told a story about how people kept showing up at their door all the rest of the afternoon, doing different things. Finally, Carmen stood up, the wife. She said, "I kid you not, knock on the door opens, and a man steps into my hotel room, plugs the vacuum cleaner in, and then vacuums the hall while she's in the bathroom of the hotel." And she said, 57 years, she's traveled the entire world. She's never had anybody do that. And I said, only our church. Can I tell you, I told you last week, we had a really interesting moment on the Via Dolorosa, the Stations of the Cross. This is the path that Jesus walks from his arrest at the Antonia Fortress, uphill almost a mile to where he was crucified on Golgotha. And so it's narrow cobblestone streets, the old city of Jerusalem, now we're in Jerusalem, and shops, and other pilgrimage groups that all want the same real estate we do, and every group gets a cross, gets a big cross. It's bigger than that cross. And you carry the cross in front of each pilgrimage group. And so it's an honor to be the pilgrim that carries the cross. So we start at the first station, and so we do a little quick prayer reflection. It's very powerful. And someone who wants to carry the cross, I'll do it, put on the shoulders, and we move to the second station. We do a little prayer and reflection, incredibly powerful. And people are moving all around us and bumping us and singing and chanting the rosary. The rosary was quite popular that day. And we go to the third station, an Armenian courtyard. And the person carrying the cross has not yet even taken the cross off his shoulders. And we start this incredibly powerful prayer and reflection, and the Muslim man runs in screaming at our group. And he rips the cross off the back of one of our pilgrims, gives him a little dose of Arabic, gives our guide a big dose of Arabic, a little bit of Arabic I recognize that I can't repeat. Our guide speaks to him in Hebrew back, basically saying, could I give you 100 shekels so we can keep this cross? It's very spiritual. And the Muslim man said back in Arabic with a strong no, several times with other words interlaced, and takes the cross and disappears. The guide comes back to me in the middle of our walking the stations, and we've come halfway around the world, and says into my microphone, I even tried to give him 100 shekels and it didn't work. I said, he said, I've never had a pilgrim all these years have our cross stolen. You're the first group. I've almost got it for 40 years. I'm like, so I said, friends, I'm sorry, we've got our cross stolen. So I'm going to raise my hand and just follow because it's very crowded, it's hard to see. Raise my hand. And when I raised my hand, another one of our pilgrims put a small wooden, olive wood pocket cross in my hand. And I have to tell you, it's one of the most moving things. I will never forget this Via Dolorosa, because you could see this pocket cross above the crowd. Do you know that one person carried this small cross that could not ever have carried the large one in the heat of the day? Arm high. So moving. And we prayed and walked the footsteps of Jesus as he walked to God. The final morning, we woke up early. Pilgrims are tired. We woke up early to go into the Church of the Holy Sepulchre. Because in the Church of the Holy Sepulchre, in the center of the church, is an edicule. And the pilgrims know, and now you know, an edicule is a rectangular freestanding building. Inside is a marble slab. Under the marble slab is a stone bench. And that is the tomb of Jesus. Here's the question. Is there anyone in it? We went halfway around the world and stood in line in the holiest place in Christianity to look into that tomb, and it's empty. And it's been empty since Easter morning. It's one of the highlight moments in my life to take our pilgrims to the place where God chose to change the world. That same day, we went up and around to the Western Wall, the holiest place in Judaism. And I stood with our brother Pilgrim Bill and many others, and we put prayers into the wall. And I prayed for you. And I prayed for our church. I prayed that God would hear all of our prayers. Because that's what pilgrims do, is they pray. That night, we went out one more time in Jerusalem. Some of us sat down to have a goodbye drink. And guess what we heard? Can anybody, some of you that weren't there, anybody here? No?
Dancing.
Music. They were dancing in a circle. So we finished our drink, and we danced to say goodbye to Jerusalem. It's one of the most moving things I've ever done. So friends, this is pilgrimage. You don't have to go anywhere. The entire geography of the Holy Land is present inside of us. Jesus can go anywhere and meet us right here and right now. Since we've come back, we've had pilgrims writing poetry, short stories, journaling for the first time in their lives, rethinking profession, rededicating themselves to marriage, planning their next pilgrimage, and being called to this church right here. Thanks be to God.